She went to sleep hugging her purple dolphin. By sunrise, the dolphin was gone, and so was she. The only thing left behind? A single speck of dirt on her pillow. In 2004, Mark Lunsford moved with his 9-year-old daughter Jessica into his parents' home on Sonata Street in Homosassa, Florida. The town sat 45 miles north of Tampa, near the Gulf Coast, a place so quiet that neighbors described the pace as non-existent. Mark worked as a truck driver for a landscaping company. He had raised Jessica alone since she was a baby, after her mother walked out of their lives. The bond between father and daughter was deep. Jessica followed him everywhere, riding motorcycles, helping with heavy equipment, sitting beside him during quiet evenings. People who knew them said they were inseparable. Jessica attended a Baptist church every Wednesday night for a youth group. She liked cartwheels, calisthenics, and her stuffed purple dolphin, a prize her father won for her at the state fair. She slept with that dolphin every night. The family seemed content. Mark's parents, Archie and Ruth, welcomed them into their home. It felt like a fresh start. For Mark, Homosassa was a place to raise his daughter close to the people he loved. Nothing in that slow-paced village suggested what was coming. The neighborhood was safe, or so everyone believed. Children rode bicycles up and down the street without fear. Doors were left unlocked. The Lunsfords had no reason to watch over their shoulders, but across the street, someone else was watching. Wednesday, February 24th, 2005, began like any other Wednesday. Jessica went to her youth group at the Baptist church. A family friend, Sharon Armstrong, picked her up after the service, just as she had done for the past year. Sharon later recalled that Jessica sang in the car on the way home. The children had been practicing for a small play, running around the church, doing flips and laughing. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Sharon dropped Jessica off at the Lunsford home around 10 o'clock. Jessica walked inside, full of energy. She showed Mark how she could do calisthenics on the living room couch. She was happy, talkative, and completely unaware of any danger. Then she turned to her grandmother, Ruth. "Grandma, I'm ready to go to bed," she said. Ruth walked Jessica to her bedroom and tucked her in. Jessica clutched her purple dolphin. Ruth kissed her goodnight and closed the door. About half an hour later, Mark left the house to visit his girlfriend, who lived just 3 miles away. He did not think twice about leaving. The house was quiet. His parents were asleep. The family dog lay in the living room. Nothing stirred. The Lunsfords would later remember that night as the last peaceful night of their lives. By morning, everything would change. Mark Lunsford returned home around sunrise on February 25th, 2005. He inserted his key into the front door and stepped inside. Immediately, he heard a strange sound, a persistent beeping alarm coming from Jessica's bedroom. He opened her door. The bed was empty. A lump formed in his throat. He called out for her. No answer. He searched the house quickly, checking his parents' bedroom, the bathroom, the closets. Nothing. He ran outside and screamed her name across the yard. Still, nothing. He woke his parents. "Mom, where's Jessie?" Ruth, still half asleep, said, "She's in bed." Mark replied, "No, she's not." Panic set in. Ruth jumped up and ran to Jessica's room. The bed was made, but there was no child. The clothes Jessica had planned to wear for school the next day were laid out on a chair. Her shoes sat untouched. The only thing missing was the purple dolphin. Ruth called 911. Her voice trembled as she told the dispatcher that a 9-year-old girl was missing from her bed. The dispatcher asked if the child might have run away. Ruth said no. "She would never run away. She's gone. She's not here. I need help." Deputies were dispatched immediately. The Lunsford family gathered outside, confused and terrified. Mark continued searching the neighborhood, hoping against hope that Jessica was hiding somewhere. Deputy Juan Santiago arrived at the Lunsford home within minutes. He had handled missing child calls before, but something about this scene felt different. The grandmother's face showed pure terror, not the mild worry of a parent whose child had wandered off. Deputy Santiago surveyed the home. He saw no pry marks on the doors, no broken windows, no footprints outside. Inside Jessica's bedroom, everything was in place. Her clothes for the next day remained folded on a chair. Her shoes sat by the bed. The only disturbance was a tiny speck of dirt on the pillowcase, smaller than a fingernail. There was no sign of a struggle, no overturned furniture, no pulled sheets. It looked as though Jessica had simply vanished into thin air. The deputy noted something else. The family dog had not barked during the night. Dogs usually react to intruders, but this dog had stayed silent. That suggested Jessica may have left willingly, or that the person who took her was someone she knew. Deputy Santiago radioed his supervisor. "Ray, this doesn't look good." He was ordered to seal off the house. Other deputies located Mark, who was still running through the neighborhood screaming his daughter's name. They put him in a patrol car and drove him back to the house. Mark later said he felt like he was trapped inside a nightmare he could not wake up from. The Citrus County Sheriff's Department called the FBI within hours. Special Agent Scott Bolin arrived from a recent child abduction case that had ended happily. He hoped for another miracle. But when he entered Jessica's bedroom, his optimism faded. The lack of physical evidence was troubling. No blood, no weapon, no sign of forced entry. Only a clean, undisturbed room with an empty bed. Investigators immediately turned their attention to the family. Statistics show that when a child goes missing from their home, the abductor is almost always someone close to the child. The FBI set up a mobile command center in the Lunsford's front yard. From that position, they could watch the family's every move. They separated Mark, Archie, and Ruth for questioning. Mark had a prior domestic violence charge from years earlier, though it had been dismissed. Archie had been arrested 50 years ago for assaulting a young woman. The charges were dropped, but the record existed. Neither man had a solid alibi for the middle of the night. Mark had left the house at 10:30 p.m. Archie had gotten up once to let the dog out. No one could verify what happened between midnight and dawn. The agents pressed hard. They asked the same questions repeatedly, looking for cracks in the stories. Mark grew angry. Archie grew tired, but neither admitted to anything. To break the deadlock, both Mark and Archie volunteered for polygraph examinations. The FBI brought in Special Agent Terry Wetmore, a veteran examiner known for his ability to detect deception. Mark went first. The questions were direct. Did you take your daughter? Do you know where she is now? Mark answered no to both. Wetmore monitored galvanic skin response, heart rate, and breathing. Mark showed almost no physiological reaction, a highly unusual result. Most people, even truthful ones, show some response under stress. The test came back inconclusive. Not a lie, not the truth. A gray area. Agents then tested Archie. The same thing happened. Inconclusive. Frustration mounted. Investigators tried a psychological tactic. They told Mark they had found Jessica's blood on Archie's underwear. That was a complete fabrication. Mark confronted his father in tears. Dad, if you know where Jess is, please tell me. Archie broke down crying, insisting he knew nothing. The agents then turned to Ruth, the grandmother. She volunteered for a polygraph as well. Her results were different. She failed. But Ruth was under enormous stress. Her doctor later said she was physically unable to handle the pressure of the test. Still, the failure raised questions. Was Ruth protecting someone? Did she know more than she was saying? The family remained under suspicion, and the investigation seemed to be going nowhere. Hours had passed. Jessica was still missing. A new lead emerged from Ohio. Jessica's biological mother lived in Cincinnati. She had abandoned the family years earlier, and Mark had sole custody. Perhaps she had taken Jessica back. Investigators tracked her down and found what appeared to be a solid alibi. Work records, receipts, time cards showing she was at her job the night Jessica vanished. But then a retired police officer reported seeing a girl who looked exactly like Jessica in a town just 40 miles from the mother's house. The girl was with a man driving a car with Florida license plates. The FBI moved quickly. They surrounded a house, detained everyone inside, and found a young girl. For several hours, investigators believed they had recovered Jessica Lunsford alive. Mark was told the news. Hope surged. Then the girl turned around. She looked like Jessica, but she was not Jessica. The sighting was a cruel mistake. Mark later described the emotional roller coaster as unbearable. One moment he was celebrating. The next, he was back in hell. The false sighting cost valuable time and drained the energy of the search teams. Meanwhile, back in Florida, detectives continued knocking on doors. They expanded their search perimeter. They interviewed neighbors, church members, and friends. They requested surveillance footage from local stores. But every lead turned into a dead end. Jessica Lunsford had been missing for days and no one could find her. Ruth Lunsford could not stop looking around her house. She kept noticing something strange about the back porch. The screen door had a small L-shaped cut near the handle. She told investigators, "That screen has been cut. That's how he tried to get in." The sliding door itself was secured by a broom handle, so the intruder could not open it. But the cut in the screen suggested someone had reached through to unlock the door, likely on a previous night. Detectives recognized the pattern immediately. It was a classic burglar cut, and burglars often commit other crimes. Some are sexual predators. The investigation shifted away from the family and toward local criminals. Agents requested a list of all registered sex offenders within a half-mile of the Lunsford home. There were about 50 names. Deputies began visiting each one, knocking on doors, asking questions, searching homes. Most offenders cooperated, most had alibis, but one name kept coming up: John Coey. He was a registered sex offender with a prior conviction for burglary. The details of that crime were chilling. He had entered a girl's bedroom, put his hand over her mouth, and kissed her. He served less than 2 years of a 10-year sentence. Now his registered address was a trailer on West Snowbird Court, directly across the street from the Lunsford home. But when deputies went there, the trailer was empty. Coey was gone. John Coey had been living with his sister in a rental house on Sonata Street, the same street as the Lunsfords. The house was number 1097, just 150 yards from Jessica's bedroom window. Neighbors later said Coey only came out at night. He kept to himself. He watched. He knew where every child in the neighborhood lived. By the time investigators identified him, Coey had already fled Florida. A bus ticket showed he went to Savannah, Georgia. The FBI alerted Georgia authorities. Coey was spotted walking toward a bus station in Augusta. A citizen recognized his face from news reports. He did not run. He went willingly to the police station. "I know why you guys are here," he said. He denied any involvement in Jessica's disappearance. Without a warrant, Georgia police had to release him, but Florida investigators obtained permission from Coey's sister to search her trailer. Inside Coey's bedroom, they found a mattress stained with blood. They also found other forensic evidence. Agents traveled back to Georgia and located Coey again. He agreed to a polygraph test. The same FBI examiner who had tested the Lunsford family, Terry Wetmore, spent 2 hours with Coey. The questions were simple. Did you take Jessica Lunsford? Do you know where she is? Coey answered no, but the machine said otherwise. Wetmore told him he had failed. Coey sat silently. Then he spoke. All right, I did it. I took her. John Coey paused. I didn't mean to kill her. What followed was a confession that investigators would never forget. Coey said he had watched Jessica for days. He saw her riding her bicycle up and down Sonata Street. On the night of February 24th, he was high on drugs. He walked across the street, entered through the back door, and went to Jessica's room. He put his hand over her mouth and told her he was taking her to her father. He carried her across the street to his sister's trailer. He raped her. He tied her up and put her inside a closet. When search dogs swarmed the neighborhood the next morning, Coey panicked. He said Jessica asked to go home. He promised her she could. He told her to step inside 2 plastic garbage bags. She obeyed. He tied the bags around her and carried her outside to a hole he had already dug beside the back steps. He placed her inside the hole and covered her with dirt. As she tried to push herself up, he stood on top of the grave until she stopped moving. He led investigators to the spot. Jessica Lunsford was found 3 weeks after she vanished, still clutching her purple dolphin. Coey was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. He died in prison 2 years later. Mark Lunsford pushed for Jessica's Law, which 46 states adopted. The girl in the pink bedroom was gone, but her name changed laws across America.